Hello. So today I would like to talk to you about why people are not having kids and horses. And horses are pretty interesting because, we used to use them for transportation. But after, I think, World War II or after the cars got invented, horses were no longer economically necessary, right? There used to be a ratio of 3 people for 1 horse. But now, horses are basically like luxury objects, right? You sort of ride them for fun, or, rich people have them and that sort of thing. So, within 2 generations, the population of horses, after they basically become economically useless, it collapsed 85%. And I was kind of just wondering about this because, in some ways, humans are becoming less and less economically relevant. There was first the Industrial Revolution that made, 200 years ago, that made physical labor irrelevant. Machines and this or that. And now we're going through the cognitive revolution. And people can debate it all they sort of want, but from my side, the AIs are smarter than the humans. It's clear. The AI is smarter than me. It knows much more. And the people who are kind of denying some parts of this, I think they're copium. So the question then becomes, all right, if you can't contribute physically, you can't contribute cognitively, what happens next? And it's a real thought, honestly. And one thing the reason I even started thinking about this question is because, I travel to some of these countries, or I don't really travel, I watch a lot of these YouTube videos about population decline and rural Thailand and how the schools aren't filling up. And if you kind of just look at the fertility rate and the numbers are pretty shockingly bad, right? It's if you start with 100 South Koreans, after 2 generations there's 4 left. I mean, that's if you do the current math, but the math can change, obviously. But yeah, the math is not looking good. But the question is why people aren't having kids, right? And what the AI told me was that, it's because kids used to be an asset when you were, working on the farm or this or that. But now in modernity, kids are some sort of luxury good. And you see a lot of people, they can have different reasons, let's say freedom or this or that. But I think a lot of it comes down to economics and the wrong type of relationship. This is not a topic that I'm really an expert about, but I'm really deeply interested in investigating to see why this is true. Both from an economics as well as a relationship perspective. Because, I think economics is one part of it. Because it's like the horse question. How do you make a living? Or where's your leverage? How do you And the second question is the right type of a relationship, because I feel like in the modern world people have all sorts of different expectations, and the relationships and the values between people are wrong, or they don't feel right. They don't feel right. And part of what I'm curious about is trying to find clarity on, what is the truth here, right? And what are the right values between people? And sometimes, I think in modernity, we are these animals that that have evolved for millions of years, what, billions of years actually, right? 4.35 billion years or something. But modernity is changing so fast that I feel like sometimes we can't really trust our instinct, right? There's been a lot of these technological advances like contraception, like modern dating apps. There's just a whole slew of things where we humans, if we sort of react to them emotionally, maybe it doesn't get us the outcomes and the results that we want, right? And that's why it's important for us to try to find the clarity, like what is actually going on here. And it's not as, when I talk about relationships, it's not so as simple as sort of pointing fingers and being like, hey, like, the other gender is bad, or that sort of thing, but more about figuring out like what is actually going on. Anyways, so that was a pretty interesting learning for me about the horses today, though. Like within 2 generations, after the horses got overtaken by the cars, the population of horses decreased by 85%, and they became luxury goods, and used for hitting balls with sticks and stuff. And nobody really killed the horses, actually. The horses simply stopped breeding. So that is the question. And part of the natural follow-up to this question, obviously, is like, what is the right control of the machines and then sort of the means of production, right? Because the horses, they can't control the output of creating cars or things that replace them. But humans, in some ways, we are able to control the production and the machines that will replace us, essentially. And it's a well-known fact that that the world is run by elites, right? It cannot be, the countries and such, like, it cannot be run by masses or groups of people, because it's just too hard to coordinate. The coordination cost is too high. So there's wherever you go, really, there's just a small faction of people who control things. And it's not just like a singular group of elites. All throughout history, it's basically factions of different elites, like, fighting each other, right? And so, going forward, there are probably going to be, elites fighting for control of the access to the machines, right? Think about today, like, for example, the U.S. government, somehow they delayed the release of GPT 5.6. But as I've sort of said before, I think I'm really curious about getting the clarity on such issues. As a peasant myself. Anyways, I need to go to the mall to buy a coffee mug, as well as some toilet paper and some shampoo. So that's also on my list of things to do. And I guess crucially, in my mental model, I don't really see it as this sort of relative competition between different humans. I don't even know who exactly you want to characterize as elites, but basically someone who's better off than the general population. Because you can succeed for one generation, but the real question is about, like, the eternal continuity of your line and humanity, right? Because, like, let's say you take the example of horses, right? Do horses decide to breed? Not really. they're under subjugation of something that's more powerful than them, right? And so the question is not like, oh, are you going to do better for one generation? The question is like, will you be subjugated to the machine or some more powerful force forever? I don't know if that kind of makes sense, but it's like, you can do well for one generation, but like if it's true that there are certain these like the machine, or like let's say you take Nick Land's philosophy about how capitalism is its own force or whatever, some external force like capitalism or like AI or machinery or whatever that is actually more powerful than humanity. And maybe right now it's like it's opportune because you have relative advantage. But you have an assumption that you'll be able to control the machine or something forever, like let's say you have AGI, you'll be able to control forever, and that's not a guaranteed thing. So I don't really believe in this sort of like. I believe that from a humanities perspective, if there's an entity or like a force like capitalism or AI that is bigger than humanity, that in some ways the intra-humanity social competition makes less sense over the long timescale of things. Yeah, so I guess what is the fair deal, right? Like, is the human population going to be like the horse population and collapse 85% in the next 2 generations? I don't really want to actually fearmonger, because I actually don't think that will happen for a variety of reasons, including competition and maybe people realizing this fact and deciding that it would be a better public good or common good for all of humanity to do better. Because like let's say you're you have the sort of billionaire fantasy, or like the elite fantasy of having your own bunker, or like your car has the shaded windows, and like nobody can you have privacy and such. No man is actually an island, right? Like you still need medical treatment, you still need this or that. Like everything in life is relational. Like, do you want to? So I don't think that's like a possibility. I think life would be like far too lonely and far too private. So I don't think that type of future will happen. But I do believe that there will be many big elite fights over control of the machine, essentially. Yeah, I just realized that I'm gonna put some scary title like the horse population collapsed 85% or some scary title, but I don't actually think that way. I'm not much of a doomer, honestly. And frankly, this is not a topic I really researched that well yet. I basically only started researching when I was like taking a poop today, so. It's just vibes for now. It suddenly started raining, like in 2 minutes. Flash raining, man. That's cool. Yeah. Anyway, sorry for the super deep thoughts today, I guess. I think I'm still pretty pissed that I got blocked from ChatGPT yesterday. I had a pro account. And I just felt, once I got blocked and I couldn't use my coding tools, I felt so useless, honestly. I felt like immediately I got demoted from a software engineer into a writer and complainer, essentially. Because I'm like, what can I do? Like, I'm not going to code by hand. That's crazy, bro. But I do feel like coming to a foreign country has been very clarifying. You know, it's like if I was like living in San Francisco or something like that, maybe I would be comparing myself with my peers and trying to write the best agent orchestration framework or evals or benchmarks or whatever. But here, maybe my VPN, they think I'm some sort of Chinese distiller or something. I don't know. Maybe that's why they banned me. But either way, not having access to the machine, it just kind of made me realize like how important this is. I need access to the machine, man. Like, and it's crazy that we're likely geography, because I'm thinking that maybe they blocked me because of my location or VPN or something like that. Like, it's like you have to be nowadays, especially with these platforms, right? They basically use ML algorithms to detect anomalies and behavioral usages. So if your if your usage is anomalous, let's say you're in a different location or you use a VPN or different devices, they're definitely going to flag that. That's what I'm assuming, because I don't think I use it for any sort of real naughty things. I'm definitely not some Chinese distiller. I'm Chinese, but so I'm not selling accounts. It's crazy. So yeah, I mean, I think another point that I feel like I thought out loud was, and I felt like was important, is about the continuity of things. You know, like part of my question at this point is really like, what are the teams? Like, who's on my team? Who, like, if that question kind of makes any sense, you know, because I feel like in the modern world, right, like, you don't actually even know who's on your team, right? People are constantly blaming each other, or they're seeing their saviors in certain ways, but that might not necessarily be true, right? Let's say you're in the dating market, right? People are constantly blaming the other gender. Well, for the most part, people are peasants essentially, and like people are good-willed, but they've basically become defensive and protective of their situation without. And this is my speculation. And they're pointing fingers at each other, but those aren't really. They don't have any power. They're peasants essentially. Like, you know, maybe they're on your team essentially, right? On the other hand, right, if you're sort of, let's say you're working. I don't know. You're trying to be a courtier, trying to climb the ladder or something, right? And you're data labeling, and right now you're getting paid a great job. You're working on some, you know, fancy prestige stuff. But ultimately, your job, you're going to be automated, and you're not actually part of the team because you can't assume continuity. Now, in the long scale of things, let's say you're an elite or something like that, and you own the thing. Can you assume that you have control over the machine forever? And if so, perhaps humanity is the team. Anyways, I don't know if that question kind of makes sense, but it's basically about who is actually on your side and who not to blame. And what is even the goal? I need to go buy toilet paper. And a coffee mug.